Okay, so let's jump into first step in creating your course, and we're going to start at the end, right? So when you're thinking about your course, the first thing that you should do is select the outcome. What is the educational outcome that I want people to achieve by the end of this course? Whether that's an educational course or a transformational course, there's going to be a clear teachable outcome in order for your course to actually make sense and have an impact. If I don't have a clear outcome, then I tend to just teach a lot of concepts, and the outcome will feel out of reach to most people and very unclear. And so when you start at the outcome, then everything you do from there is by design, and people will actually have the learning experience that you want them to have if they are going to apply the concept in practice. So an example here might be course is Calm Evenings, Teaching Parents Consistent Bedtime Routines. And it's for parents of children ages 3 to 10 with bedtime resistance. And here, my primary outcome that I've selected for this course is parents learn to create and maintain a predictable bedtime routine that reduces protests and supports independent sleep onset. So this course is going to teach some repeatable strategies that maybe I've used in practice. It's not assessing or treating sleep disorders. And so I'm going to provide this warning at the bottom that really, I'm here to help you solve this problem. And this is what outcome you can expect to achieve using these strategies that I've designed. So notice that we didn't choose, right, fix all sleep problems, treat any sleep disorders, solve severe clinical cases. We chose something that was very specific, teachable, behavior focused, and appropriate for education. And so if your topic is too broad, then for your course, you're going to want to choose something within that umbrella that is specific and teachable, behavior focused, and appropriate for education. Another outcome here, right, or example, is that parents can establish and follow that bedtime routine with fewer disruptions. And so in the course, I'm going to make sure I have that clear focus. It's realistic and measurable, so the family knows when they're contacting these wins, and they can continue through the course because they want to achieve that outcome. And then there's no attempt to fix like every sleep issue. This is where a lot of clinicians get stuck. They're like, oh, do I have to include in my course if Johnny experiences this like deviation, or Susie has this barrier come up, or there's this constraint within the home. All of those details are best served in treatment. But if you are designing a course, you can be very clear that you have one specific outcome, and yes, address like any trending barriers potentially, but you don't have to address everything inside your course. It's not what it's designed for. And the outcome here should be teachable and scalable. So again, you can teach it one to many. Next is the C in scale, and that is to clarify the client. So define who this course is actually for. A lot of your expertise could benefit a lot of different people. And so being specific helps you ensure that the content inside of your course is actually addressing that person, their unique problems, and maybe the barriers that they would experience. So a primary learner for this course would be parents of children ages 3 to 10 with bedtime resistance. So you can give some examples, right? Getting out of bed, calling out, stalling, tantrums. And I can also specify the environment. I'm teaching this in the home setting. If you're a busy family, that's a great social identifier, right? Limited time, inconsistent routines, then this is for you. And so I'm clarifying who this course is for. One second. Sorry, got a cough. Okay, so then the next is the assumptions for the client. And this is important too, because you want to make sure that you're providing clarity around, again, what the course solves and what it doesn't solve. So I'm going to make an assumption that there's no medical red flags, right? The behavior problems are routine-based, not medically driven, and parents want structure and strategies. So as much as I can include this or say it so that the course expectations are really clear, the better. And that way the course also stays very aligned and focused. Because again, when we start making some different assumptions, then we start to try to solve 100 problems within one course. And we're sort of deviating from the outcome and potentially tipping over into treatment. So staying clear here, make sure that your course is really focused on what it should be. So an example here might be, The audience is busy parents. They're working within the home on their routine, and their constraints are time, energy, competing demands. You can see not diagnosis, not different resource constraints. These are the things that I'm working to address. And these will be addressed in my course, but I'm not going to try to solve everything. And so this course emphasizes visuals, short lessons with examples, flexible implementation options, and that context is going to shape the instructional design, and it's going to keep me aligned and on track. So now let's go through some example modules here. So module 1 might be understanding bedtime behavior. So why bedtime resistance happens, common behavior patterns, how environment and routines contribute. Again, I'm not addressing everything. I'm starting here because I want that educational foundation. Module 2 is one step closer to achieving that outcome. So now I want to teach families how to design the ideal bedtime routine. So maybe I'm choosing a consistent bedtime, creating a visual routine, talking about transitions and some rituals that we can put in place. Now, module 3 is one step even closer to the outcome. So now I'm teaching reinforcement. How do I create some systems that actually work so that I'm reinforcing and then fading that reinforcement over time? Module 4, so you can guess, it's a little bit closer to the outcome. And I'm going to talk about some barriers here. So here's where I can address, hey, you've tried these things, and just so you know, you might run into these barriers. And these are the common ones that I see repeated throughout my experience. And so I am going to address those with clear, simple response plans, some scripts, and some strategies that I've seen work in the past. And then you can do some more troubleshooting, some adjustments, and some extra contextual extensions of that learning so that people actually know how to apply it within their given scenario. But again, you don't have to figure out every single possible thing that could happen in order to teach it inside your course. Here, you're just looking to get closer and closer to that outcome. So that progression looks like that foundational knowledge, right? That education, some structure. So that helps with implementation. And then some troubleshooting. That's where that transformation comes in. You taught me all these things, but now I'm actually running into some challenges or barriers. If I know and can predict what those are because I've seen them repeat themselves over and over again, then I can troubleshoot them and get people closer to that outcome or transformation. So that progression should exist within any course. But again, you start with the outcome and then reverse engineer the steps to get there. The L here is linking concepts. So every lesson should end with something to do, not just something to think about. And so as you're designing your course, we just talked through how to establish who it's for, the outcome, and now reverse engineering the steps. And now within those steps, you want to make sure you have some way for people to actually take action. Implementation, homework. So for this example, that might be a bedtime routine chart, common stall tactics, things that you recognize within the home, choosing one reinforcement strategy to start tonight, right? So these are all examples of linking the concepts to practice. Some practice prompts here might be, what went well? Where did the plan break down? What could you change tomorrow? So people, again, are thinking about their own implementation without you having to directly guide them. And then you can have some scenarios, right? If your child calls out 5 minutes after lights out, what's your plan? If your child negotiates more time, how do you respond? And so you're really focused here on taking the information and concepts and making them applicable to real life. So I want to describe the real life that you're going to experience when you go try this thing. And I want to consider barriers. I want to make you reflect on what you did, what worked, what didn't, so that you turn that information into behavior change. And then next, you want to equip learners. This is the final step in kind of constructing your course. And this is where the course becomes scalable. So you want to be able to share that value without committing to more and more direct work or having to then support people beyond that. And so this is where tools can be very helpful, resources that help people take action. So this, for example, could be printable visual routines, reward chart templates, script cards of things they can say when their child is trying to get out of bed, maybe a checklist with all of these different parts of the routine that you've taught within your course, maybe that troubleshooting guide. Hey, if this is happening, try these things instead, and even like a progress tracking worksheet, right? This isn't about volume, it's about value. So don't like pack it in just because it looks good to have 400 resources attached to your course, but it is a way to build that behavioral momentum, right? If I can get somebody to take the first step and take action toward that outcome, and I make it really easy, I'm reducing that response effort to nothing. Hey, here's the template, here's the visual schedule, just click print, post it on your child's bedroom door. Then now I'm creating that momentum that I need in order for these clients or people who have bought my course to achieve that outcome. And so just kind of in summary of that structure, right? This isn't treatment because it's not assessing the child. I'm not creating individualized behavior plans, even though I am addressing some common barriers and challenges. I'm not collecting clinical data or really observing the progress at all. And I'm not directing caregivers in clinical decisions. So you can do kind of a final look back at your course and make sure that you're not crossing those boundaries and that you're teaching a framework that people can apply instead of kind of tipping over into treatment. Again, education is meant to empower, and then treatment is more individualized. Just to kind of show you what this looks like in practice, this is how my OBM practitioner program follows that S.C.A.L.E framework. And so the selected outcome for that program is that BCBAs interested in OBM will design and complete a practical OBM project that improves organizational performance. So my goal at the end of that process is that people can actually design a project and complete it within their workplace from start to finish, right? And so if I know that's my outcome, I want to make sure I know who I'm talking to. So I clarify the client is practicing BCBAs who wanted OBM experience, but needed that structure, that kind of step-by-step roadmap. And the context is these real workplaces with limited control and limited time. I wanted to understand that context because I can't create a course that has all the ideal scenario, right? I want to make sure I'm considering reality for BCBAs. And then arranging instruction. Here's where I created that step-by-step framework covering what my idea was, data, intervention, evaluation, presentation. Here's where you create those steps toward that outcome. And within that program, I have designed each step within the framework that leads to that ultimate outcome. At every milestone, I'm including some implementation assignments. So as people create their OBM project, they're coming back, sharing that milestone or step, and I'm giving feedback, right? And so now I'm linking concepts to application, and I can give feedback on each of those steps in the framework. And then finally, equipping learners. This is where I added project templates so people can just kind of plug and play, some checklists for people to know that they're following the framework and things to consider. Some assessments and guides, and we have some live coaching so that people get that feedback and redirection when they need it. So ultimately, following this structure, participants leave with real life OBM projects because we've walked through the steps to get to that outcome, and I know who I'm talking to, what their real context is like, and how they need to achieve specific milestones to get to that end result. So that's kind of an example of that framework. And so now, if you have questions, thoughts, any ideas that come to mind, I'd love to